All right, guys, I just want to welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here, we're doing our preview and prediction for the Iowa State Cyclones. Looking at this 2025 staff, Matt Campbell at head coach once again, 64-51 record since taking over almost a decade ago at this point. Taylor Mauser will be offensive coordinator. He's also been on the staff since 2016, second year in the role for him. And then John Heacock has been a phenomenal defensive coordinator for Matt Campbell, starting all the way back in his Toledo days in 2014. Looking at this offseason, another rough one. They didn't do too much in the portal, and then we brought in the 55th best high school class. And then last year, they turned an 11-win campaign, which was the most wins ever in a single season for Iowa State. Getting things started with this offense. This is a group that returns 6 starters, and I think they return a very good quarterback, and Rocco Beck to start with him. This is a guy who showed great command of the offense last year. They operate lots of screens and quick game, and he does a very good job in executing that. Has nice accuracy on curls and slants. I love his running abilities. He's a slick gamer who doesn't give up. Very slippery when getting out of the pocket. He can improve his efficiency, though. Arm strength about average. Doesn't really drive the ball downfield. Of course, he did have 9 interceptions last year. 6'1", 210. I remember watching that game against USF, Nick, at home, where they should have lost. Their defense was playing bad. The offense couldn't keep up. And Beck, he would just drop back, take off, and run. And this guy was not going to lose that night, Nick. And that's the type of attitude you love to see at a quarterback. From a quarterback in a program like this. He was a high-level producer last year. Of course, he loses some very key weapons, but I think this is the right man in charge going into his second year as a starter.
Rocco Beck returns and is a very fun and exciting quarterback to watch at Iowa State, and certainly is part of the reason why this offense is an intriguing offense to watch. Certainly had issues with accuracy last year, a sub 60% comp rate, about 0.6%, below 60%, but kind of just below that threshold. 3,500 yards passing is a solid number. 25 touchdowns is a solid number, but 9 picks, certainly got to find a way to cut down on that. Obviously, that's not the full story. His legs are another key part of the story. For him, he had 98 attempts for 318 and 8 scores. Really solid asset in the red zone. His legs bailed him out of a couple games last season. They can certainly use that and scheme there. He's a very steady hand at quarterback, a guy that's a veteran at this point now. He's got some good experience in this conference. They were not a bad passing unit last year at all, right? 40th in the nation in that regard with some solid deep threat ability. He loses Higgins and Knoll, though, 2 really talented wide receivers ended up going in the NFL draft. This wide receiver room has to find a way to sort of build up and get that sort of production back that they lost. It's going to be curious to see if they can do so. We'll talk about that in a second here, but I trust the quarterback here. He'll throw the ball to them. It's just about whether the receivers can create separation and make the big plays that they have to do to bail out their quarterback.
That's going to be the biggest problem, right, is they lose 248 of the team's 422 targets last year, as those 248 went to 2 guys. They lose absurd production. Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins, they're going to reunite with the Houston Texans in their NFL career. Gabe Burkle at tight end was actually 3rd in targets and had nearly 300 yards. Carson Brown, Eli Green both played a little bit last year, but not much. Daniel Jackson didn't play last year, but now enters his 6th season in the program. And they picked up 2 transfers who are going to be leaned on heavily. Chase Sewell, 6'4", 190. He's coming off 2 straight 600-yard campaigns and has been a consistent pass catcher. And Xavier Townsend mainly in the slot, but has played both roles. 3 seasons at UCF, occasionally made a big play, but not much collectively from him. And then Brett Eskeldison, a true sophomore, played a few snaps last year. This is a weak room altogether, Nick. There's no other way to say it. Of course, the staff, they've done a great job of developing guys, especially in key positions over the years. So I think long-term, they're going to be just fine. But for this year, you're looking at 2 transfers, and that's about it. Other than that, it's kind of a makeshift unit. Of course, we're going to hold off full judgment until the season starts. There's not much here to be happy with, but knowing what we know about this staff, that's why I'm going to push it back a little bit until the season actually gets underway.
I mean, it's difficult to replace, almost 2,500 yards of production from 2 wide receivers there. Knoll and Higgins were so dynamic for this team. They, Knoll had 8 touchdowns, Higgins had 9. Just going to be very difficult to replace that. This unit, they went out and they added some pieces. They returned some pieces they hope could be reliable here. You start with the returners there. Burkle's a really good tight end. 296 yards receiving, 11.4 yards per grab, and 1 touchdown for him. Benjamin Brahmer was a decent tight end for them as well, 179, 17.9, and a score. He'll certainly have an increased role. They sometimes roll at that 2 tight end formation there they can work with. Carson Brown and Eli Green are further down the depth chart. They only had 10 grabs each. Brown did have a touchdown, though, 141 yards for him, so Brown projects to be maybe potentially the better of the 2 players at that wide receiver X position. They bring back Daniel Jackson, who didn't really play a whole lot, but he's a veteran that's been around the program. They add the 2 guys in Chase Sewell and Xavier Townsend. I look at Sewell as the guy that's probably the higher upside. 678, 19.9 yards per grab, pretty impressive number there, and 3 scores for East Carolina last year. Not a bad showing for him, certainly in the second half of the season. Townsend didn't have a great year at all. He had a better 2023, which I'm hoping, if you're an Iowa State fan, they're hoping you can kind of replicate that success. 325, 9.8, and 3 scores in 2023 for the young man who ends up transferring over here. A weak room, certainly. There's no way to sugarcoat that, but I do think there is some potential. They went out and addressed this. They didn't make a whole lot of moves in the portal. They don't really do that a lot at Iowa State, but they went out and they added 2 receivers. They clearly knew that was a position they had to improve. Curious to see how these guys develop in this system, though.
Now you look at the running back room. They return the top 2 rushers from last fall. Carson Hansen, more of a bruiser at 6'2", 220. He can do damage on the inside. And then Debu Sama's going to be the guy that does work outside the tackles. I thought he'd be a breakout player in the conference. I mean, he was solid, but he didn't hit those levels that I had for him. But I mean, it was still a great rotation. He has nice speed. I like the wiggle. The vision and cutting really stands out as well. Both those guys had good production. Dylan Lee, a redshirt freshman from Arizona, played only 2 games last year. And again, they developed these running backs very well. You know, they have 2 high-level starters in Breece Hall and David Montgomery in the NFL, Nick. And obviously, they get a lot of tenure out of these running backs. These guys have both been around producing for a couple years now. You know, 2 guys that will be entering their 3rd year in the program. So I imagine one of these 2 guys will be in the NFL quite soon. But this is another area where I just think they coach the running backs so well. These guys always run so tough. They always seem to have the wheels keep turning when they're running. I think this is a more of the one-two punch. It's more underrated in college football. Nick, what do you think of Sama and Hansen?
Yeah, I love what Hansen and Sama can do here. I'll start with Hansen. He'll get the bulk of the carries, 752 for him, 5.0 yards per attempt last year, so 5 yards per attempt. And 13 touchdowns on the ground, a really impressive number from him. He was really solid. Also had 2 receiving touchdowns. He may factor in the passing game a little bit to pick up some of that slack. Sama's a really solid back as well, 587, 4.7 yards per carry, and 2 scores for him. I really like this 1-2 punch. I think Hansen is a really good leader there, a veteran that's been around the program, 2 juniors here that have good experience. This is a good running back room. The rushing attack was 70th in the nation last year, probably a little bit below what they were hoping for at 160 yards per game. I could see that number getting a little bit higher this year as they're going to rely on that rushing attack just a little bit more. I like this unit here. I like that 1-2 punch there, and then Dylan Lee adds a little bit of flair at the end potentially as well later down the depth chart. This is a really good running back room.
Now we'll move to the offensive line. James Neal played 140-plus snaps at both left tackle and left guard. He wasn't exactly impressive in either. He is 6'6", 330, though. He was the starting left tackle in 2023, and he was as poor as you can be, so I'm not sure exactly what his role is moving forward. Trevor Burr at left guard wasn't all that good, but he didn't allow any sacks, so, you know, with some improved consistency, I think he'd be really good. Dylan Barnett, 6'5", 330. He was great in pass protection himself at left guard. Looks like he'll be the primary center, though, in 2025. Brendan Black saw 900-plus snaps at right guard. He was one of the worst pass blockers in the conference, though. Tyler Miller himself nearly saw 1,000 snaps. He was also quite poor, allowing 35 pressures. The offensive line feels like a bit of an Iron Man unit with how much they were able to stay on the field last year, Nick. I think they can be good. I think they'll improve. They were collectively pretty good last season as well. Individually, didn't really have any standouts, but I think you're going to start to see all these guys progress in a positive direction. I'm pretty happy with this unit up front.
Yeah, I like this unit. I think they'll be a solid unit in the Big 12. They've had some good offensive lines for Iowa State in the past at Ames. They played some good football on the O-line at Jack Trice. I do think this is a good unit. I like what Neal could do at left tackle. He'll certainly develop. Burr as well at left guard will find a way to develop. I like what they have in Black and Miller on the right side, and then Dylan Barrett is a pretty good center as well. This is a good unit. I think they're a strong, physically strong unit, and they'll be solid in helping in, setting up that run blocking and really clearing those pathways for the 2 backs there.
They moved to the offensive verdict. Iowa State was a fun to watch last year as they had 2 great wide receivers hog the load of a slick gamer at quarterback and a deep backfield. Most of those remain intact, but the loss of the pass catchers is going to hurt them badly. I don't think they can replace that production, which is going to lead to putting more emphasis on the ground game. And I think they'll handle it well. Numbers are going to fall off, but they play the game the right way. It's going to be tough to contain, even with a lack of proven talent. I'm going to go with a B, Nick, just because I think that the production that they're losing is so great at pass catcher, and I think the running back room will be good. But again, I think the offensive line, even though I think they'll be solid as well, the lack of individual talents is kind of worrying me away. So are they going to play better in a B? Most likely, but in terms of unit grade, it's going to go there for me just due to the overall lack of impressive talent.
I think a B is a fair grade, right? It's going to be tough to replace that almost 2,500 yards of production from your top 2 wide receivers. There's no sugarcoating that, right? I think all Iowa State fans understand that is the reality right now. They have a good running back room. I think they really have a solid 1-2 punch in Hanson and Sama. I think it'll be really good. Obviously, you have a great, reliable quarterback there that will certainly continue to develop and be a better passer. The wide receiver room is weak, but they added 2 transfers that could certainly be key transfers at the end of the day. The only 2 transfers they added on the offensive side of the ball. And a rock-solid offensive line should lead the way in pass blocking and in run blocking. Overall, a B unit, a middle-of-the-road unit in the conference. Nothing that's going to completely, flash you away week in, week out, but they'll be steady. They'll get the job done. They'll score points. They'll probably be in that, 25 to 28 points per game range. Probably won't get to 30 again this year, but I like what this unit can do. I think a B grade is fair for them right now.
Now I move to the defensive side of the ball. Another group that was collectively very strong last year, but definitely had their weaknesses as well. They returned 5 starters. One of the most notable is going to be Dom Orange. He's been a superstar on the interior, 6'4", 325. He's been really good against the run in his career. Zamir Hawk was pretty solid in his 250-plus snaps. Elijah Carnell, pretty solid size, 6'5", 290. He's barely seen the field, though. That's for the interior. The edge group starts with 2 transfers due to weak depth. Vontroy Malone was solid in the last 2 years with Tulsa. Cannon Butler played over 1,400 snaps the last 3 years and was a good run defender for Northern Iowa. Miles Mendozone saw nearly 100 snaps last year. Ikena Ezogu he's also been very poor in his 2 years thus far. Outside of Dom Orange, who do we have here that will step up? Depth is not that ideal, so playing time is certainly up for grabs. Biggest thing here, Nick, is this run defense was horrid last year. You see it on screen. They were, 110th nationally against the run. They also only had 16 sacks. For this defense to be as good as it was, it's pretty impressive considering they were getting smoked on the ground weekly in conference play, and they even gave up 200-plus early on in the year to Iowa, Nick. These guys were awful, and they still won 11 games. So improvement seems destined, but I don't know how high that ceiling really is, though, for them against the run.
110th against the run is just a poor number. It's crazy the juxtaposition between their run defense and their pass defense. 110th in the nation against the run, first in the nation against the pass. I mean, can you find a team that has 2 polar opposites in that category anywhere else in the nation? I just don't think you're going to find something that drastic of a difference between 2 sides of between run defense and pass defense on any team in college football in a very long time. It's a crazy stat when you look at it that way. This is a run defense that I think will get better, but I'm really kind of hesitant to say that because I don't know if they did enough in the portal. I don't know if they have enough returning. Dom Orange obviously is a great piece to get back, and he'll certainly improve his numbers this year. 24 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, a sack, and a pass breakup for him. Ikena Uzuga as well, 19 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack for him. He'll find a way to be involved. He should be solid coming off on the edge there. I think they really made a nice move adding Malone from Tulsa. 25 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, a QB hurry. He had 4 of those in 2023, so he's a really solid asset. I think he'll be good for this team. 6'3", 240 was not a bad add out of the portal at all. They also went out and added Cameron Butler in-state from Northern Iowa. He's going to see what he can do making the jump up. Zamir Hawk is going to play this year at nose tackle. Didn't do a whole lot in his limited appearances. Only had 9 tackles and a QB hurry in 2024. Hawk is hoping to step up and be a stronger asset here. I'm concerned about this run defense. They were very poor last year. They do return some starters, which is certainly helpful. And adding Malone, I think, was a really solid add out of the portal. But can this unit find a way to improve? Because I think it will certainly help this defense a lot and kind of relieve some of that pressure on the secondary if they could even be, close to 75th, 80th in the nation against the run.
What would certainly help is the middle of this defense being better. They were incredibly poor at linebacker last year for the Cyclones. Of course, they do return a few veterans to try and develop. Cooper Ebel played the most snaps of anyone. He was horrendous, had 19 missed tackles, didn't do much damage versus the run. Jack Sadowski was slightly better in his 300 snaps, but he'll also need to take his game up a notch. Caleb Bacon, he was phenomenal, especially versus the run back in 2023, but he went down after only 5 snaps this last year. And remember we talked about this, Nick. We're like, man, these guys might be in a world of hurt now that he went down. And that's exactly what happened, as a huge void in the middle was caused. He should be able to elevate this defense now that he's back this fall. Will McLaughlin started 5 games, but he was also sluggish versus the run. Kale Brazina and Ryan Barnes both saw 200-plus snaps. Barnes was actually a pretty solid performer. So one thing that's standing out here is they had a lot of guys gain a lot of snaps last year. They all really struggled across the board, but I think we can see strong development from this group. I think they'll be much better versus the run. Need to sort out the best combination, though, on the 2 deep, Nick, because they had a lot of guys playing at this position last year. It's all about trusting the process with Matt Campbell. We've seen that for almost 10 years now. I think they'll be fine here, Nick, due to that experience. But if they look like how they did last year, well, they're probably going to get worse against the run.
It is a little bit of an overcrowded room. Cooper Ebel returns. He had 69 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, a sack, but he had a lot of missed tackles. You read the number there. Bad performance from him. He's got to clean up his run defense, certainly. Barnes returns as well. He played in 9 games last year with 30 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss. Sadowski as well had 29 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and a sack. He was not bad for this team. Will McLaughlin only played in 5 games. He had 15 total tackles and 2 tackles for loss there. Obviously, they get a nice a return in Caleb Bacon, who missed last year, but he was really good in 2023. 60 total tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 8 quarterback hurries. When he played in 2023, 6'4", 245. He's a good leader for this team. Very nice to get him back. He'll certainly be a strong asset for this team. Overall, this linebacker core has some key pieces. I agree with you. I don't really know exactly what the best combination is going to be. I think the coaching staff will have to really work to kind of figure that out in practice. But if they can get the best combination out there playing consistently at linebacker, this could be a really strong team over the middle, and that will certainly help out that run defense.
And then move to the secondary. As expected, they were tremendous. They had one of the best pass defenses in the country, number 1 on the stat sheet. They've had plenty of guys drafted the past couple of seasons, and I think they're going to continue to play at a high level. They get back a starting corner in Jontez Williams. This guy was elite in coverage, allowed only a 37% comp rate towards him and nothing after the catch. He also had 9 plays on the ball, so you can pencil him in as one of the best. David Coffey and Benny Nagoy are in line for some time. Neither played last year, though. Trey Bell, he was good in 10 games for Lindenwood last year. He'll come fill a starting void, I assume. Jeremiah Cooper, on the other hand, returns for his 3rd year starting in the slot. He has great ball skills and production. Wasn't as consistent this past year, though. Struggled versus the run and also missed 17 tackles. Tashawn James and Jamison Patton both played a good amount of snaps. Neither were starters until now, though. Again, this is a well-coached secondary, Nick. John Heacock runs this 4-2-5 as good as anyone in the country. This defensive coordinator does not get enough love, Nick. They've been doing this for quite some time now. This secondary is going to be rock solid, even if they didn't return all these guys. But I think, a lot of veteran presence around here, led by Williams and Cooper. They're going to be in good hands. They'll be, once again, top 10 nationally against the pass.
Yeah, I love the secondary. It's going to be a dominant unit, the best in the conference, and one of the best in the nation. Again, they were so good against the pass last year, and they'll be good this year. They bring back Cooper, who was really good for this team, 48 total tackles, a tackle for loss, 2 picks, and 8 pass breakups. He's just so good in coverage there. Williams returns 46 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 4 picks, 5 pass breakups for him. He was really solid as well. Tashawn James was not bad for this team either. He's a guy that they potentially want to play more in the slot. He had 41 total tackles. He was not bad. When you look at, Marcus Neal also returns 18 total tackles and a sack for him. They're going to try and carve out a role for him. He was a true freshman last year. He was solid. Trey Bell will probably start on the left side coming over from Lindenwood. He was good for that lower tier program. He makes a jump up though, so curious to see how he develops. I like what they have here. This is a good secondary that was really strong last year. They returned some nice starters. They returned some good experience. They supplemented it with a portal piece that could be really good in Bell. This is a great unit, and they were phenomenal last year. I think it'll be up to that same level again this year.
Now you look at the defensive verdict. Cyclones unit was good last year and will be once again, but the run defense was a major weakness, and they don't have any new faces that you can count on to show out. This will solely be on coaching, and I think at linebacker you're going to see major improvements, but I'm not certain that the pass rush or the D-line will be any better. Secondary, though, will be lights out. Glaring issue is that run defense is going to plague them pretty bad if it can't get any better. So I'm going to go with a modest grade of a B here, Nick. You have one elite unit, and you have 2 units last year in the front 6/7 that were just flat out poor and really underperformed. I know Dom Orange is one of my favorites. He's great, but other than that, we need somebody else to step up. I think Caleb Bacon coming back will be tremendous, but I'm not going to put too much faith right now in them and giving them a B+. Are you going to go ahead and give them that urge, or how are you feeling?
No, I'm going to stick with a B here. A very Jekyll and Hyde, two-faced defense. Phenomenal against the pass, horrible against the run. Such a weird split there for this team. They struggled on the defensive line last year. I like the Adam Malone. I like the Adam Butler as well. I think Trey Bell was not a bad add either out of the portal for the secondary here. Dom Orange is a phenomenal player. Excited to see what he can do this year. I think he can put up a lot of numbers on the board. Hawk as well is a younger guy who should get some good reps here. The secondary benefits from linebacking core benefits from getting Bacon back. The secondary is a very strong unit again this year. I like what they can do here, but I think a B is fair. There's still too many questions. Can this team produce in terms of sacks and against the run? They were horrible against the run last year. They got to be better this year. They got to cut that down and be, maybe anywhere in the top 80. I think would be a significant improvement for this defense. Can they find a way to do that? I think the jury is still out on that. I'm keeping an eye on this Iowa State defense. I'm keeping an eye on it week 1 especially in Dublin. Week 0 in Dublin against Kansas State. Can they find success against that rushing attack? That will be something I keep an eye on.
I move to the schedule and the prediction. Iowa State is always a tough out, and as expected, they had a shot at the CFP last year by headlining the Big 12 title game. They come into 2025 with some good players, but some pretty glaring holes as well. The wide receiver group is weak, while the run defense is going to need a major surge if this team wants to avoid an embarrassing season. Again, Campbell is a great coach. They're once again going to be tough. I'm not counting on them to run the table this year, Nick. I just don't know if they're going to have enough playmaking from those pass catchers. And even if the defense improves in those weak spots, to what degree will it be? Will it be enough to beat Kansas State, Arizona State, TCU, Cincinnati? I just don't think it will be. I think they're going to have a tough time with Kansas State, a team that's phenomenal at running the football. Week 0 in Dublin, it's going to be a great game. I just don't know if they're going to be able to hang for 4 quarters. And then, of course, I have a handful of road losses here as well. This isn't that hard of a schedule, Nick. I think they can certainly run the table. I don't expect them to this year. I'm going to go with a 7-5 mark after cashing in on the over win total last year on this ball club. They can certainly get the 9 or 10 wins, and no one would be shocked. I'm just not going to call it for it this year.
An 11-win season last year, the first in program history, was quite impressive from Matt Campbell's group, considering they went 4-8 in 2022 and looked completely lost, going 1-10 or 1-8 in the conference, 10th in the conference after being pretty strong in the COVID year in 2020, winning that famous Fiesta Bowl. They won the Pop-Tart Bowl last year, a game that a lot of people counted them out against Miami in a crazy game, one of the more interesting games of Bowl Mania. The Pop-Tarts Bowl obviously has all the off-the-field antics that are so fun for us diehard college football fans. And this Iowa State team is participating in a game that has a lot of those sort of off the field antics and vibe as well. Week 0 in Dublin, always fun. Definitely the headliner of Week 0, a phenomenal matchup against Kansas State. I think will be a really intriguing game. I also think Kansas State is in a good position there. I think Kansas State will dominate them on the ground. Of course, we'll talk more about that in August, just a couple of weeks' time from a recording of this episode. The rest of the schedule, like I said, is relatively easy, right? You have a game against South Dakota, a trip to Arkansas State, non-conference, kind of intriguing, playing Arkansas State on the road. You play Iowa in your rivalry game. I think they'll be able to handle that one. Then you look at the conference schedule there. Some tough road trips, certainly at Oklahoma State, Colorado, TCU, and Cincinnati. Losing, 3 of those 4 games, though. Those are just better programs. Specifically, I think TCU is going to be a really strong team this year. I like what this team has. I think they have a great quarterback that's a good leader here, a strong running back room, and a very dominant offensive line. The secondary is phenomenal. Linebacking core, I think, will come to their own. But 2 key spots worry me: the wide receiving room and the pass rush / run defense. Those are this big glaring concerns for me, and that's holding this team back, leaving them at 7 wins instead of 8, 9 wins and competing for a conference title. I love what Matt Campbell can do. He's doing doing more with less. They're not going to go out and land 5 stars in Ames, Iowa. It's just not going to happen. But he's going to get guys in that are gritty, that are tough. They're going to fight and really work their ass off for the team and the greater good. He's a 3-time Big 12 Coach of the Year for a reason. This guy can get a lot out of guys who aren't highly ranked recruits. He brings guys in that want to go work hard, that are tough, that are going to fight. Jack Trice Stadium's a really tough place to play when this team is playing good football. I think they might scare some of these teams at home, which is why we have them winning a lot of those home games. They may upset Arizona State on November 1st. I think that's certainly a big possible win for them on the docket. I think I can certainly win that game. I like that potential there for Iowa State a lot to pull off a big upset. Overall, this is a pretty easy schedule here. I think they'll get to a bowl game and continue to build on the success that Matt Campbell is building out there in Ames.
Yep, couldn't have said it better myself. That's going to be it for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.